to order. It is 6:04.
Did we confirm that Jen's doing notes?
Yes.
We do need to move forward with voting on officers at the next board meeting, FYI.
Do you have people to, like, new people to add, or?
No.
Oh,
Just guys.
Yeah, this is COVID is very strange.
Yeah.
It's real.
I'm doing my first virtual conference and I don't like it.
Yeah.
It's different. So anyway.
Well, the headgear looks official.
Yeah, the computer speakers were horrible. Now I can hear everybody, and I think everybody can hear me.
yes, you
All
said.
right.
Yeah, really worried about Elam. I'll keep.
Yeah, my head is a little messed up right now. But anyway, we'll call the meeting to order.
Okay.
Do we have a roll call?
So Alam will put absent. I am here. Carla.
I'm here.
Robert.
Here.
Tracy.
Here.
Ashley.
Here.
Thank you. Whoops.
All right. We have a quorum. On to introduction of guests. Can we have our guests introduce themselves? I see several.
Susie Navarro, Assistant Principal.
Hi, Susie.
Hi.
Venice Angel, Director of Special Education.
Hello.
Hello.
Marcus Findley, Assistant Principal.
Hey there.
Joanna Kelmes, Director of Operations.
Hi everyone, my name is Ruben Olasco. I am the Safety and Facilities Operations Manager.
Got that? Yeah.
I can see everybody's name, so I
Okay,
can. I'm not going to type as fast as everyone speaks, but I can see everybody's name.
Okay, cool. We do want
Yeah,
everyone to still,
okay.
for the recording purposes, just speak out loud.
Mhm.
Let's see. I see that we've gotten all the staff. So you've heard from Mr. Velasco, Joanna. They're all REACH staff. And then we have some parents on the line. Would you like to introduce yourselves, please?
Elaine Zamaripa, parent.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Grove. I have a third grader.
Welcome.
My name is Delaney Pinkham. My daughter's in kindergarten.
Nice.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Stacy Salgado. My son is Derek Shigoya. He's in 2nd grade.
Awesome.
I'm Ashley Askins, Javon Askins. Our daughter is Maya Askins, and she's in 1st grade.
Awesome.
Glad to have parents on the call. We have a few
Definitely.
more. Mm-hmm.
Brandy Caron, I have a kindergartner.
So new to REACH, welcome. We have a few more parents.
Desiree Soto, my daughter's in 1st grade.
Thank you.
Awesome.
A couple more parents. Is it Julie? Is that how we pronounce it? I don't know if they're on mute.
Yeah, they are. There we go.
Yeah, I don't have I'm in the car.
That can.
It's Jared's mom.
Yeah, you're breaking that.
I think we heard that part and that was it. So we got you.
We got you, Julie. Julie. Thank you.
Okay.
I didn't know that's how you spell your first name. Did we get almost everyone?
I think that's everyone.
And then we didn't get Miss Marilyn. Marilyn, did you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Marilyn, Dr. Anthony's executive assistant.
And I see Elaine.
I think she introduced herself.
Did she? I didn't see her name. Okay.
I haven't caught up yet.
Got it. Okay.
I introduced myself.
All right, perfect. Is that everybody?
Yep, I think that's
all right. Perfect. Welcome, everybody. On On to item 2, which is review and approval of the agenda. Were there any questions or comments, anything we need to change on tonight's agenda? All right, seeing none, we have a motion to approve.
A motion to approve.
Second,
I second. This is Carla.
Carla?
Thank you. So that's not a vote, so it's just, is it just aye?
yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mm.
Seeing none, motion carries. Agenda is approved. On to item 3, invitation to the public to speak. Have anyone that wants to address the board on anything? No one? All right, seeing none, on to item 4, which is reports. Presentation on the learning community and attendance plan.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And start the presentation. Get us in present mode. So today we're going to do things a little bit differently. We normally have an LCAP meeting, a local control accountability plan, where charter schools have been allowed traditionally to hold a public hearing and also vote for the approval of the plan on the same night. There's been some modifications this year due to COVID. Schools weren't required to complete their local control accountability plan. It was whittled down just a little bit and with more of a focus on COVID and how we were going to meet the needs of our local community based on our current set of circumstances. And so just due to just all that local educational agencies are going through at this point in time, the learning continuity and attendance plan is at this time taking the place of that LCAP. And so what is part of the requirement is that we hold 2 separate meetings, which is today is the public hearing, which is why there's really no vote we're not asking the board to vote. This is basically for us to explain the plan. We will then create space for next week for parents to be able to react to and give feedback on that plan. And the next time we come before the board, which is the end of this month, then we'll be asking the board to approve the plan, but it will at that time include any feedback that we get from parents. So we'll go over the learning continuity and attendance plan, and then I will touch on the elementary school waiver. So today I'm asking for board input and feedback with regards to how REACH moves forward in the midst of COVID and whether or not we will continue to move forward with the school waiver, and we'll talk about that in detail as well. So go ahead and get started. I want to start with, move this out of the way. I just want to welcome everyone. We're glad to see some parents on the call. We definitely, invite your input. You have no idea how invaluable it is to us. And at REACH, we have several times throughout the year, we invite parent input because of, I don't know, various, I guess, factors. That input seems to be waning. And so we've seen that on Zoom with our last couple of coffee with the directors and times that we met with parents, we've had a much larger turnout, and it may be because of the Zoom access, the easy and accessibility of being able to log into the meetings and things like that. And so we're asking you to really stay engaged throughout this process. We'll be sending out, Marilyn will go into detail later, but we'll send out a survey asking for your feedback with regards to this plan. And we would really, really, really like to hear from you to get your feedback as we move forward. The purpose of the meeting today, or this public hearing, is to present the plan, collect comments from our stakeholders, and then again, I will touch on the school waiver, and that's intended to get some feedback from the board with regards to that. So 2 separate things going on, which is the public hearing for the learning continuity and attendance plan, and then conversation around the school waiver as we move forward. And so as parents, this should be very familiar with you, the board. We've sent this out. We spent an inordinate amount of time over the summer coming up with a school reopening plan based on the needs of our local community. We ascertained that there was a need for distance learning, 100%. Distance learning, which would mean students would not be on campus at all. We also entertained the idea of a hybrid, if the board would recall that we started off with an A-B schedule, looking at the possibility of students coming on Tuesday and Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. But we ended up landing on and deciding upon, which you'll see in our option 2 here, an A-B cohort where students are, one cohort is on campus Monday through Thursday, and then they will switch with the second cohort and be on distance learning the following week, and then flip-flop. So that is our parent option 2. So option 1 is 100% distance learning. Option 2 is a hybrid model. And then we also presented option 3, which is actually very different from any other schools that I've seen. Maybe there's some out there. I haven't seen this option. I think that, yeah, for various reasons. But we were able, based on feedback from parents, to offer an option 3 that's for essential workers only. So because of the uniqueness of Reach and how our campus is laid out and the uniqueness of our staff and what we provide on a daily basis anyway, we were able to provide our essential worker families with the option of their students attending school Monday through Friday with no distance learning, 100% in-person learning on campus. And so this was the beginning of our school reopening plan. We presented the 3 options. Parents have the option of choosing which option they'd like to opt into. And the results have been what we were hoping they would be. And we kind of knew where we were headed because of our first survey that went out to parents. And with these 3 options, we're still able to bring less than half of our kids on campus at any given time. So there's no classroom that will exceed half of its capacity on any given day. And so even though we have students that are will be in attendance Monday through Friday, we're still able to do so and reopen in a manner that's safe, that can keep the students physically distanced, that can keep our teachers safe. And we'll go into more detail as we move forward throughout this meeting today. Any questions on the options? I know that a lot of you are parents and you've seen this prior to. Any questions so far?
No, thank you.
All right. So just a quick summation. The learning continuity plan and attendance plan is a requirement for the 2021 school year. The plan was addressed in Senate Bill 98, which is very extensive Senate bill. It covers child care services for students literally from 6 weeks on up. And obviously that encompasses the elementary school program. And then plan must include, and you will see us touch on some of these items, most of these items today, stakeholder engagement, continuity of learning, distance learning program, pupil learning loss must be addressed in the plan. Mental health and social emotional well-being must also be addressed. Pupil engagement, student outreach, and then increased services for our foster youth, our English learners, and our low-income students. And so that's something that a lot of these line items mirror what's required in the LCAP annually anyway. But again, the difference here is you'll see a lot of tailoring to COVID and the specific needs of our students based on our current climate. It draws from the COVID-19 operations written report that was submitted to the board back in June. And so a lot of that plan was lifted here and expanded upon because COVID operations basically looked at what we did in the rear view, and then we took a lot of those operations and we talked about what our learning plan and school reopening plan will look like as we move into the 2021 school year. So one of the bullets we discussed, one of the requirements of the new LCAP is what I'll call it, is stakeholder engagement. And so we've worked tirelessly since March to involve parents and various stakeholders in this process to the extent that we possibly could. And so last spring, we had a teacher check-in survey in March to get feedback from teachers. We have team lead meetings, and we have weekly huddles that with all of our staff just for check-in measures. I started meeting with the admin team once a week so that they're kept up to date on various processes as we go forward. I had a team lead retreat for 2 days that included a lot of the admin team. We also had a weekend that admin devoted just toward the school reopening plan. And as you know, many of us worked the entire summer on just trying to prepare ourselves for distance learning and then school reopening when that does come about. We had 2 coffee with the director meetings, and that is a meeting that we have. It's been virtual, and the turnout virtually has been, we've been very pleased with the turnout. We had a meeting in May, a meeting back on July 31st, and then the next meeting will be October 8th. We did have one scheduled for this month, but we felt like with this particular meeting here, and it just was a lot. So we thought we would push it back. And that meeting will also, so the last couple of meetings have focused around going into detail with our parents with regards to what the school reopening plan looks like, what they can expect in the fall, and basically what we plan to do, again, to make sure that we're mitigating the learning loss to the extent that we can, and when we do reopen, make sure that we open in the safest manner possible. We also sent out a school instructional survey, a planning survey. So 2 surveys were sent in July. We collected preferences and feedback from parents, and this is where we came up with our 3 options. And then the learning continuity plan then that we're discussing today, it chronicles that engagement. And then there's links within the plan that shows the flyers, the recordings, and all the presentations that we have given to and used to engage all stakeholders to the extent that we possibly could. One of the other items that we're asked to address is the in-person instructional offerings. And so what would that look like once we have all of our students on campus? And so we've talked to the board extensively about this, but we do want to say, just for the purpose of this hearing, that we do intend to have our option 3, which is essential workers, which will be 100% on campus. We also have that hybrid option where those AB hybrids will alternate. I will go into detail in terms of some of a lot of the measures that we're putting in place to keep all of our students safe. But so the plan goes into detail with regards to what that will look like. So as I mentioned earlier, no more than half of our students will be on campus at any given time. We have very specific protocols for coming onto campus, exiting campus, transitioning from one class to the next if that were to happen. There will be no congregate settings or meetings, no students gathering in large groups for any way, shape, or form. Keeping the students and the student groups small is obviously one of our priorities. Making sure that instruction happens simultaneously between the in-person and the distance learning. I'll talk a little bit about that with regards to some of the technology that we brought into the classroom to try to facilitate that. And as you can imagine, teachers having to juggle both kids being in person as well as teaching online as well. And then we also we've addressed instruction and the time and the hours that are allowed. I'll stop here. I want to talk about the hours, and I'll pause for question. One of the things that we did was Actually, your instruction runs from 8 o'clock to 2:15, so that is a typo there. And so normally instruction starts at 7:45, but because of the added level of responsibility and work that we placed on teachers, we have cut some of the instruction time down. So instead of starting at 7:45, teachers come on campus at 7:30, instruction starts at 8. And then normally school ends at 3:15, but we are ending an hour early to allow teachers to have office hours, monitor student work that's being submitted online, to provide feedback. They're doing small group tutoring and a plethora of things that we'll get into a little bit more as we go forward. So we have shortened the school day, but we haven't shortened the amount, the rigor and the work requirement. And so even though teachers are, I guess, how do I say, less face time in terms of with students, although a lot more than probably most schools, there's still work that's still being pushed out and required of students to make sure it mirrors a normal instructional day. Are there any questions so far?
I was just curious, how many instructional minutes, or like how many minutes are they face-to-face?
Yeah, so I have some of those that break down later too. And it actually mirrors our day pretty much.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it does. So it is pretty, I have to say. So I think I have it broken down a little later, but good question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So also in-person instructional offerings, we needed to identify actions related to keeping obviously the students safe, our staff safe. And so our PPE, which is the personal protective equipment, those purchases are ongoing, and we've definitely included more gear than we've had in the past. We're installing hand washing stations, and so those will be installed before students are allowed to come back on campus. We're also installing water bottle filling stations because, as you know, students aren't allowed to share drinking faucets, and so we wanted to make sure we have water bottles on hand. We encourage our students to bring their own water bottles that are labeled, but also having an opportunity to have filtered water outside where the kids can refill those bottles on their own. We're installing, Ruben can give me the number. Can you tell me, Ruben, really quickly, how many hand washing stations we're installing? Are you there?
I'm here. We are installing a total of 12 faucets for outdoor hand washing stations.
The 12 hand washing stations, and then sprinkling the water bottle filling stations throughout campus as well. Because we know that using hand sanitizer is not the preferred method. It is something that we also will have available for our students, but it's not our number one go-to. We will have times throughout the day where students will actually go and at scheduled times to wash hands throughout the day, not just when they go to the restroom, but at certain intervals. And so that's a priority for us. Social distancing signage, that's something that Ruben's working on as well. And if you haven't met Ruben before, Ruben's been with us since year one. He actually came over from Jefferson Elementary School with me. He's been around for a long time. And he runs the facilities and has been very instrumental in assisting with a lot of the egress and ingress, how kids get on and off campus. The social distancing signage that we're working on that currently to make sure that's installed before students arrive on campus. So we'll literally have, how do I want to say, signage that says where to stand, physically distance, one line indicating onto campus, another line that's specifically for moving toward the exit. And again, so that students are very clear on paths of travel. And also we've included another full-time maintenance staff dedicated for cleaning and disinfecting and maintenance of our operations. And so if you're probably aware that, if you don't, yeah, thank you. You're probably aware that we do have one full-time custodian during the day. We also have custodians that come at night, and they're also increasing their disinfecting, and so they are on a schedule as well. but we felt like what needed to happen before kids came on campus, and in order to keep our campus clean and disinfected, we needed another individual to assist with the maintenance and the cleaning. And so we did hire an additional person. So just those things, line items that we've mentioned here, has been an additional $63,000 that we didn't intend to spend this year. And that's $63,000 and counting.
That doesn't include the added staff though, correct? The added custodial staff?
Yeah, I'd have to ask Marilyn where she got the numbers from. It might include some of that, but it doesn't include all of it. Yeah.
I think I asked this question in our last meeting, about these added costs that clearly we wouldn't have if we weren't in a pandemic where we had to be on lockdown. Are we reimbursed for that? Are we tracking that? How does that work?
Yeah, so we have about $400,000 in COVID funds, and so part of that is the things that we're mentioning here can be coded to those funds. They $400,000 might seem like a lot, but I think we've almost spent that.
Nope, it's not a lot at all.
Yeah, we've almost spent that for sure. And about $300,000 has to be spent by December. So there was a time frame on being able to expense those out.
So this was in addition to, this is actually earmarked for COVID. This is in addition to our other funding.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely. So this is just a line, and again, this is and counting. This is just kind of where we are today. And again, so a lot of time and effort has gone into every detail, to even the purchasing of PPE, what PPE will be needed. We've identified an isolation room. So if somewhere were to be identified as having COVID on campus, we have protocol in place for what would happen in that case. And we do have a full-time school nurse on campus that's fully abreast and stays in communication with the CDE as well as like our local health department to make sure we stay abreast of all COVID related news briefings and updates, as well as we have a system in place should someone be identified on campus, God forbid, as having COVID. We do have a pipeline of communication where that's concerned as well. Any questions?
Dr. Rentie, I guess my only question would be, if a parent is identified as testing positive, how would we handle that?
So then, so good question. So then that child, and obviously anyone that's been exposed to that parent, would be required to quarantine for 14 days.
Okay.
And then anyone that's been exposed, so that child would have to stay home as well. So communication is true.
So that's a great question, and I guess I would add to that, how would we know? Is there something that we're doing in our run through in the morning that we're getting at that information?
So we're sending out surveys to our kids and anyone coming on campus, asking, those COVID related questions. Have you been exposed? Have you had COVID in the last 14 days? Have you been exposed in the last 14 days? And so go down that list. And then also, as we do with staff every day, there is a protocol for, you have to wear face coverings in order to come on campus. And then everyone has to obviously go through a temperature check before being allowed to come on campus as well. And so our staff go through that every morning, temperature checks, and then any parents picking up a child would be required to do that as well. Our kids will go through temperature checks upon drop off every day. And then obviously looking for the COVID signs, and then having like a plan of action if a kid comes down with any symptoms that might appear to be COVID related. Did that answer your question at all?
Yeah.
Robert, did you have any other questions?
Nope, that's perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Is this a parent question time?
This is, yes. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think? Yeah, go for it.
It just goes right along. Okay, thank you. It just goes right along in line with this. What happens if a child is in school and they do get you know, all of a sudden they see that there's a temperature and there's a possible COVID, that they have COVID or something along those lines. Where does the child physically go, and what is the protocol for contacting parents, that kind of thing. I'm worried about them being secluded and taken off site and things like that. So that's more my question.
So we do have an isolation room that's been identified, and it's on the church side. We also have the proper PPE and the proper staff to then take care of that student if they are exhibiting symptoms, student or staff, and they would be isolated immediately and asked to be picked up immediately. And then of course, if there were, you know, if there were any, that child came down with COVID or right, we would notify anyone that's come in contact with them right away.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Hi, this is Elaine Zemaripa. I'm a parent as well. I have a question. As we're entering the flu season, how are you determining and distinguishing the difference of COVID and flu in kids at this point?
Yeah, good question. Unfortunately, we can't distinguish. And so we're having to treat all the flu symptoms as if it's COVID. And so if it's, you know, chills, fever, sore throats, I mean, that could be flu, right? Or, but those could also be COVID symptoms. And so we're isolating and sending those children home, you know, immediately, staff as well, and then asking them to follow the protocol that the CDE has actually identified as, you know, making sure that they are symptom-free for X amount of time before they're allowed back on campus. And obviously if they were, so we've had staff that have been exposed, but we haven't to COVID. And so we've asked them they've quarantined for 14 days. We haven't had anyone that's been identified as being COVID positive, but our staff, for instance, that have been exposed have also been tested, and each time it's been negative. But we immediately, you know, we send them home for 14 days. And so we would follow the same protocol as has been outlined by the state of California.
So as a follow-up question, I'm sorry, did I interrupt?
Go ahead.
Okay. As a follow-up question to that, if it is determined by a physician that it is flu, will the child be able to return after the symptoms have subsided without having to test negative for COVID?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Are you making it a requirement for a second negative test for the child to come back if they test for COVID, or?
Yeah, so we follow the state guidelines, and there's no requirement for a second negative test.
Okay, they just can't be symptomatic.
Can't be symptomatic, and they would follow the same rule. I don't have Amanda on the call. She can tell us right away. I'd have to look it up, but I think there's there's normally like 24-hour, they have to be symptom-free, like no fever for 24 hours before they're allowed to come back. So we're still following those same protocols.
Thank you very much.
Tracy?
No, I was just going to say it's just hard because the symptoms are similar.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we have to be extra vigilant. I think we are, or vigilant. But yeah, and then flu season is here, so it's frustrating. So we're doing what we can, I guess.
I did have a question, Dr. Rentie, regarding the isolation room. So let's say little Johnny has all the symptoms and we send him away to the isolation room. Or what are we doing with the other kids? Are we saying we're going to wait until we get a negative reading for that child? Or are we going to tell the other kids in the class, or their parents rather, that they have possibly been exposed?
That's a good question. I don't remember the protocol on that. Does anybody remember? I believe we're treating it as if it's COVID. We're isolating that child right away. We're sending them. I don't recall.
Okay, because
I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, because sometimes I know for us, what we'll do if someone was possibly exposed, if students are possibly exposed, then we're sending everyone home for 14 days.
You send everyone home for 14 days?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. One thing that I'm not sure you went into too much detail on is what the classroom setups are. So they have to wear a mask. You have the plexiglass up. So there's a lot in place. And the distance between each student, there's a lot in place to add extra safeguard to that.
Right.
But that's a great question.
You know what? I'll look into that. I don't recall, and I don't have Amanda on the call for that. And I normally have answers to everything. I don't have it right
That's
now.
okay.
But
Dr.
but kind of to Tracy's point, one of the things that we've been able to do is because we're taking temps in the morning, like that's something that you normally don't do in school, right? We haven't had to do in the past, and so we're able to catch things right away. And so we'll have those temperatures taken in the morning, and then, but will we identify, or, because it could be a cold or it could be the flu. So are we letting everyone home? That we're not doing, and that's not a requirement by the state. But if they were to test positive, then that whole class would go home for 14-day quarantine for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And the only thing with that is by the time that they do, the kid does test positive, the children have already exposed everyone else that they're around. That's the only thing. Yeah.
Right.
So it's really something, this whole thing is really something, and it's all new. So we don't have all the answers,
Right, true. I think that the reason why the elementary schools are allowed, for instance, to apply for a waiver is because the incident rate is so small, right?
Yeah.
With kids that are a lot younger, but they could be carriers, right? So they are asymptomatic but carriers. And so, which is why, we have all the protocols that we have in place for physically distancing the students. For the face masks are required for everyone, all the adults on campus. Every student from grade 3 on up will have a face mask. It's strongly recommended for the younger students. It's not required, but in those classes, the face shields are definitely installed, are being installed at every desk. And so then, so we're able to identify and isolate, very, very quickly and remove a student from that environment that is showing symptoms. And so one of the things obviously teachers have always done is been very good about looking for, any kid that's listless. And so we, like I said, every kid that drives up, say our drop-off procedures in the morning, you have, 3 and 4 cars unloading at a time. You have 4 people out there taking temperatures immediately. And so kids can't even get out of the car, or parents can't leave until we clear them with their temps.
Right.
And so if the temperature's clear, then the kids are able to come in. But then we're also, because you can also get a fever later, or maybe they put Tylenol, and so we didn't catch it. And so then obviously just being hyper vigilant throughout the day as well will help a lot.
Right.
And it's physical, so we don't want to rely just on the temps, which is why we have the physical distancing, the shields, and the masks for sure.
Yes. One of the other things, the outdoor hand washing stations, I think I heard 12 or 14, correct? Ruben, I think, said 12 or 14. My question is, will you have one at each classroom? I think it would be really good to have one right there in the classroom. So as the students go in, they wash their hands. I know that you said that throughout the day that you were going to have them go to the bathroom, and wash hands, or go to the stations and wash their hands. But it would be really good as soon as they are going into that classroom to wash those hands and so forth. And I don't know if that was something that you were thinking about.
So we don't have one outside of every room, no. But we have them strategically placed around campus for easy access. And then we'll have teachers have actual times that they'll stop and take them to get their hands washed. We'll do the same. Our PE staff also has a protocol for hand washing. And so they'll be washing hands throughout the day for sure.
Okay.
And then they also still have, we're encouraging parents to send their own hand sanitizers as well.
Correct.
They'll have hand sanitizers within the classroom, but we want to make sure we layer that with definitely making sure that the running water is available. Obviously, they still have their bathrooms too, but we wanted to make sure we had complete access to those stations.
Great.
Any other questions? And then I'll get back to you guys with regards to the question you asked about, but I don't, yeah, I'll get back to you. And as a matter of fact, we'll address that. We'll put it out publicly with regards to the question you asked. Also, in terms of continuity of instruction, like making sure instruction continues to move forward and that we still include that rigor. As you know, like our kids are on Zoom, we use Google Classroom, we use Seesaw. There's a variety of different platforms that teachers have been able to use to make sure learning still takes place. We've been, able to check out technology to, as far as I know, I believe we might have a couple of kids left on the waiting list. We had to order another Chromebook cart. So that's additional COVID funds there. But we've checked out Chromebooks to just quite a few kids. And so we've sent home technology as well as hotspots to anyone that needed them if they didn't have internet access at home. And so we've been working with our tech team, our teachers, our parents, the front office to identify anyone that's lacking access or to not only technology, but connectivity while at home. Any questions about that? Then also we had to look at, and one of the things we've worked on is a pupil participation in progress. And so you've got your synchronous, your asynchronous method. So synchronous is in-class lectures, work assignments, tutoring and small group instruction. But also a lot of that asynchronous methodology would be the Zoom and those things that are taking place virtually. And so we're employing both. And both can be considered for instructional minutes. And I haven't done the math yet, but I believe, so we're at 240 daily minutes of live Zoom lectures. And so about 45 to 60 more minutes per subject. So Jen, answer your question. And then they're also teaching up to 120 daily minutes of supplemental lives. So then they have, the teachers teach on Zoom. They then post lessons, those lessons on Zoom for later viewing. And then there's also the asynchronous work, which is the projects and the assigned works and the assessments that students are taking while at home. So quite a bit. I mean, we have had some people say, well, like they weren't expecting the rigor at Reach. But one of the things that we've been asked for the state, like when we first closed, you know, we were all figuring this out, not only us at Reach, obviously, but the state and the federal government. And so there was a lot more leniency with regards to the rigor. We were just in survival mode. Well, now we don't know how long kids will be in asynchronous learning, and we need to make sure kids are still learning, but we're providing all the supports that we possibly can. So what I'm very pleased with is not only are we doing all these things, but we still have our intervention staff that's working with kids and tutoring where needed. We also still have sped ed providing services throughout the day. And so we continue to offer a full continuum of services regardless of whether it's over Zoom or in person. We're just trying to make sure that our kids and our families get what they need. Any questions?
This is Desiree again. My daughter's in first grade, and it's not really a question. I just want to say that our teacher I'm amazed daily by the amount of work that they're doing. And I know that they probably were doing a lot of work before, but now it's completely in my face, you know, because I'm watching it, and I'm overwhelmed in a pleasant way by just above and beyond they've been going.
I appreciate that. Thank you for your feedback. We have gotten a lot of good feedback. I mean, we have had new people come in and say like, whoa, this is a lot. A few, not a lot, but our teachers are working really, really hard, which is a reason why they have the extra 2 hours in the afternoon just to catch up. And they're making office calls basically, and they have all day on Friday to, that's when they're assessing kids. They're still doing small group. We have a leadership focus at our school. And so we still have leadership. They're still doing community circles. We're still a restorative justice campus. And so our teachers are phenomenal. They're still working very hard to make sure we keep that reach continuity going for our kids, even though they're at home. One of the things that we have increased is the instruction time for TK and kinder and first grade. So a lot of that work that was pushed out was the asynchronous, where a lot of packets were sent home. And it wasn't until the end of last year that teachers began to, the younger grades began to have, like, you know, time on over Zoom. Well, this year, going into the new school year, they started immediately with the asynchronous, the Zoom lessons, and it's actually been going really well. So as far as the learning and professional development, so we had 2 weeks of professional development for teachers prior to school starting, and instructional staff a good week as well. Again, we had that time spent with just our leaders and our admin staff over the summer. We had new curriculum and training with regards to that, which was English language arts for 5th and 6th. We have a brand new science curriculum that helps, it has more of a structured online component. We have, again, and then new technology. We talked about the teachers having to, at some point, they'll be teaching in person as well as with kids over Zoom. And so we did purchase Promethean boards for every classroom. And that's been, you know, increased teacher engagement. It's been very helpful. It's like a big computer, honestly, where teachers are able to create lessons. They can interface live with kids online. They're able to use the Promethean board as a whiteboard, but also as a piece of equipment, technology, computer, and it's been pretty phenomenal. And so our teachers have been trained on the Promethean board. They're using them. And they report a lot of positive feedback with regards to those as well. So we're putting our money where our mouth is, and definitely spending a lot of money on classroom and instruction to make sure our kids are getting everything that they need. And again, those staff roles and responsibilities have increased in a myriad of ways, and some of them we've already identified. Any questions so far? Also included in our plan is the pupils with unique needs. So we're looking at our English language learners, our students with exceptional needs, foster care, and then students experiencing homelessness, which we don't have any identified kids that are homeless at this time. And we have a small population of kids that are foster. We have the outreach program, which is a resource program that we've put together for kids that are in need. And so that program includes, we do have a liaison for homelessness, or our homeless populations, should we have them, or at home insecure, should we call them. And admin's a part of that team. Our sped ed and our counselor, Miss Venice, is a part of that team. And so all of us are here to support any of our kids as the needs arise. We do have, so we have identified in detail in the plan that you'll see that's attached what we're doing to assist our English language learners. And so we still are required to provide 30 minutes of ELD instruction every day. And so that's still going out, and that's still happening. Our low-income students are provided with technology and food every day. And then all those other services that we offer, small group instruction, really based on need, free tutoring from our teachers. None of those things have stopped. They're continuing to be a part of what we offer here at Reach. We've talked about some of this as well in terms of addressing the needs of over distance learning. And so we talked about our Chromebooks, our Promethean board purchases, our Zoom communication, the hotspots, and Seesaw, which is a lot of the younger grades use, and then all the additional curriculum and instruction and resources that we use so that teachers and our students are successful online. And so this is a plethora and a list of those things. Any questions for that? And so here's the biggest deal, and this is when I go into, when we get into the waiver, this is our biggest concern as educators and administrators of, you know, a school at this point in time, which is mitigating the learning loss. And so you know, what is REACH doing is one of the questions that we're being asked to answer to mitigate the learning loss that we can all assume is happening with kids receiving, you know, less instruction potentially. Or, you know, we're having to be, you know, balance between kids being on Zoom all day or technology, imagine the little ones. And so one of the things we started instituting is weekly data meetings. And so I've always had data meetings about once a quarter, and we've always, teachers track data on their own because data is what drives instruction. So you want to be able to know where your kids are, how they're testing, so that instruction is modified accordingly. And so what we started doing as an admin team is also having weekly data meetings where we're pulling and looking at common assessments and interim assessments to make sure our kids are not just what we're teaching, but are they learning what's being taught? And so we started that 2 weeks ago. And so it's a lot to ask of our teachers, but our teachers are amazing and they've risen to the occasion. But we are using benchmark data and ongoing formative assessments to make sure our kids are learning. And if we find that they are not, we will make the necessary adjustments and then we'll keep pushing forward. We have, for our English learners, which are our EL kiddos, we have a daily focus on those core areas for them, which is the reading and the writing, listening and speaking. And so that continues to be a focus of ours. And again, the equitable access to our low-income students. And then the Promethean boards was another way to mitigate that learning loss, purchasing new curriculum, making sure we're up to date there, that our curriculum had the proper online access and components that we needed. I mean, we've just tried to cover all the bases. Any questions so far? Nope. And then another one, Ms. Venice is on the call with regards to the mental health and social emotional well-being of our kids. As you can imagine, like this is a very difficult time for everyone. You know, we're reading the news. I mean, you're reading, you know, that not only are, you know, if families are going through and you're seeing higher rates of stress and trauma amongst adults, then imagine what the kids are going through right now. And so because REACH already had a robust mental health and social emotional component to our day-to-day operations, we were able to just take that and make a pivot and start working and being get ahead of, I guess, in front of the possibilities of kids showing signs of symptoms as we interface with them online. Accessing, identifying kids that may need additional assistance. And so we do have, we call it ERMS, which is educationally related mental health services, and that's on the SPED Ed side. But Ms. Venice is a licensed clinician, and so she doesn't just stay in SPED Ed, she's also available for family and parent counseling, and she's available to our families in crises 24 hours. Ms. Venice also has a bounce back curriculum program that she and her team have introduced. And again, that is trying to get ahead of any COVID related, stress related, you know, issues that kids may have due to COVID. And Venice, do you want to talk a few seconds about the bounce back program?
Absolutely, Dr. Rentie, thank you. So the Bounce Back program is specifically targeted to be implemented in an elementary school environment. It's a 10-week social emotional system that essentially uses activities to allow trauma to surface. So essentially what will happen is the teams that have been trained on the campus will push into the classrooms either at the end of the instructional period on Zoom or at the end of the instructional period in class, provide an exercise to the students that is fun and informative. And then the data and all that will come back to me. The team and I will review it. And any students that are exhibiting elevated symptoms of stress, depression, or trauma, that information will surface in those exercises. And then those students will end up seeing me one-on-one. And so we're able to work through some of the experiences that the student has gone through. And then there's a component that pulls the parent into the fold and allows and builds that relationship again, and allows the parent and the student to essentially start working out the trauma together. And then once they're at a point, then I'll release them.
Pretty great, right? Yay, Miss Venice. So a lot going on at Reach. Any questions? Right. And so daily pupil engagement and outreach, so daily maintain instructional minutes. And so we have met, I believe, and exceeded the state requirement. For charter schools, actually, the state reduced the number of days that we were needed to be in school to 175 for the year, but we're still keeping with our 183. Nothing changes at Reach. So we're tracking daily participation, communicating the absences. And so Ms. Navarro, who's our assistant principal, this is her purview. And she's really, now that we have Mr. Finley, who's focusing on the curriculum and instruction piece. So Ms. Navarro and her staff have been focused on this daily tracking, the engagement piece, making sure teachers are tracking appropriately, because we have no idea. Well, we kind of have an idea, but so the state is saying that they'll use like engagement tracking record to I guess give us for attendance purposes, right? And so we're no longer needing to take daily attendance because we're not paid based on ADA anyway, but we do need a system in place that still monitors that student engagement piece. And so Ms. Navarro and her team have come up with like a really clear and easy to use and facilitate attendance like monitoring system that allows our teachers to track it, to track the attendance. And then we have the protocols in place to make sure teachers keep up with their piece, so that we are then, if we're called upon to then, substantiate our attendance, we can do that. And so full on, completely to the letter, we have a system in place for attendance tracking as well. And then we just got a call from the district saying, oh, by the way, we still want you to take daily attendance in ARIES, which is our student information system, which we can do, because we're all figuring this out as we go. But again, according to the state guidelines, like, we're completely covered. We can also pivot and get the district what they need. And so we're just, yeah, so that's going on in terms of attendance tracking. But those things like our SST processes, which is a process that we use to identify kids that are starting to struggle academically, or it could be a behavior struggle. We still have the SST process in place with Mrs. Jumeyer runs that process. And then that is part of our child find. So if a student comes in and it's maybe has some disabilities in learning, then they go through that SST process, and we're still funneling and I'm identifying kids in need of special ed as well. So none of our processes are have any I guess loss where that's concerned. Like, we're definitely trying to make sure we're spinning all the plates all at once, and we have like a very a very well-trained, well-equipped, very efficient, and highly qualified staff that's able to continue to do what they normally do, but in these very different circumstances. School nutrition, we're still, pushing out lunches every day. So we have a lunch schedule just for while we're 100% distance learning. We also have a lunch schedule for during the hybrid. All of our kids will receive lunch and meals every day. We did change vendors this year because there was some complaints from kids. They weren't liking the food very much. And we think it had a lot to do with like the way it was heated up and warmed. And so we do have a new system for that. But we have a brand new vendor, and parents can actually pick up meals on Monday for the rest of the week. They don't have to, drive back and forth and waste gas. They can just pick up on Monday, or they can pick up, for a 2-day period and come back. So a lot of flexibility there, but we are making sure that we are giving out meals daily. We're also, through that outreach program, looking at ways to make sure kids have food over the weekend if needed. And so just identifying those kids that still, that are food insecure, that need food over the weekends. We're starting a food pantry and things like that so that our parents and all their needs can be met. for our kids. Questions? All right, and so this is the hybrid model. So breakfast, lunch, food safety, you know, making sure that we're physically distancing, that they're using their PPE. All of our staff have food handlers permits. And then remember, like during COVID, so probably for the rest of this year, there will be no large gathering in the NPR. So when our kids are on campus, they'll be eating in classrooms, in small groups, in classrooms. And so we have enough staff to push into the classrooms, relieve the teacher, you know, kids finish eating and then take the kids on a break, not recess, but like a break, and physically distance with some kind of a exercise of sorts, and then bring them back into the classroom. But again, no large gatherings. And so very, very different this year. And then we talked a lot about the increased or improved services. And so this is something we're asked to identify every year. And so this is the small group model of instruction is something that this is just what we've done from year one. And we feel like a lot of our success that we've seen, did I tell you we were, I forgot the name of it, that we're a highly performing charter school.
High performing.
Hybrid. Did we talk about that? Yes. Thank you, Marcus, for helping me out here. So, I mean, one of the reasons why we're high performing in one of the top charter schools in the state is because of the small group instruction and how we're able to individuate instruction for all of our kids. Yay. And so that testing and the data, looking at data, looking at what the kids' needs are, and then trying to tailor to those needs is something that we work on. And then we're always challenging our teachers to make sure they're also looking at not only our kids that are low, that need that extra help, but extending the learning for those kids that need to be their learning accelerated. So Marcus, since you're on, do you want to speak to any of this increase and improved services for our kiddos?
Can you repeat that for me?
I said, do you want to speak to this slide at all? Any way that we're increasing or our improved services for our EL or low-income students?
I don't think there's really much to add on here. I think you covered almost everything, whether on this slide or the slides before. So there's nothing new jumping out in my brain right now.
I want to say with Mr. Finley, though, one of the big benefits that the school has been able to like realize is that with him being able to focus on just the curriculum instruction piece and work with the teachers, there's big benefit to that, right? Like, so while I'm doing this stuff, he's able to do that. Ms. Navarro is able to focus on, the engagement piece and the attendance, and all the rest of us, right, are in our pockets. And so it's been extremely helpful to have him. He sits in on Zoom lessons, provide copious feedback to teachers. He'll go in, he'll co-teach a lesson if need be. He helps them with lesson planning, and he jumps in there where needed. And so that also helps the more we support our teachers, the more it helps our kids in the classrooms. And so then as we fly this or land this plane, so what happens next? And so I'm going to turn this over to Miss Marilyn so she can talk about what needs to happen next. So we've put the learning continuity plan up. There's a landing page that Marilyn is going to talk about. The plan is available for everyone to review. Remember, it's draft form, it's still being made. And a lot of it is really what we need is parent feedback in order to complete the plan. So Marilyn, do you want to tell everyone what the next steps are, please?
So the next steps are for everybody that attended, you were able to give a public comment, or when you look back at the board meeting agenda, under the announcements, there is a section that will have a hyperlink on there, and that will be another place for public comment. So if you have any feedback regarding the different sections of the learning continuity plan, you can leave some feedback there. We can't say how, stress enough how important it is to get feedback, whether thumbs up or thumbs down, or any suggestions that you feel would strengthen our current school reopening plan. I will also send the links to those public comment pages after I finish speaking, and then the learning continuity plan landing page. So in order for us to continue, being transparent and open with our stakeholders, we did create a tab under the board home in the board homepage, we did have a drop down section for the learning continuity plan. So everything that we've talked about today, so currently we have the draft of the document. We do have some additional resources on there from different plans from the state, from the county, that we've used to kind of formulate the school reopening plan. So there you will also see where we pulled information in terms of like best practices for cleaning and things like that. We do want stakeholders to submit any additional comments after this, I guess, public comment meeting up until Wednesday, September 23rd. So you do have some time to, you know, read through the documents, look at the different information that was provided, and give us feedback, which we will use to incorporate that and then produce a final draft, which will go up to the governing board to adopt, which that meeting is Monday, September 28th. And then after that, we do have 5 days after the board has approved the plan to submit it to the chartering authority, which is RUSD. And then we must also submit a copy to the COE, which is Riverside County Office of Education. So at that point, this plan must be submitted no later than September 30th. And then the either the chartering authority or the County Office of Education, you know, there's a potential that they might come back and after reviewing the document, ask additional questions of how we put together our plan, and they could ask for any amendments. But of course, it really does help to have that parent and stakeholder input, so we can show that we have consulted with different groups to put together the plan. So I'll get the links right now, and I will also drop them into the chat box.
Any questions? Before we get into the school waiver, and then we'll be done with the meeting. Any questions with regards to the plan? And we can open it up for parents as well.
I do have a question. Can you just expand a little bit on what technically what their recess will now look like, and how they're going to be kept separate from other classrooms and things along those lines?
Anybody can jump in here, Mr. Finley, if you want to as well. So good question, by the way. And so their activities will be modified. And so obviously there won't be any sharing of equipment. We're looking at alternate ways for kids to be active and engaged while, you know, getting their legs stretched while they're outside. So during recess, it will look very different. And so a lot of the recess will be for more so a mental break. We'll be encouraging kids to bring books outside. They'll still continue to be physically distanced. Part of that recess will be designated times for washing hands, eating snacks, spread out on the lawn, and still allowing them to maybe converse with their friends, but obviously spread out. We still have PE, and again, that'll be very different in that there won't be any games that are played that have kids facing one another or obviously interacting in a way that would compromise their physical distance. But there are, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I can add to some of the plans that we have for the students.
Go ahead.
I wanted to add, when you said that we would have the students outside, we will have them separated distance, so we would have some markings around the campus, but more so we will have planned activities that involve things such as dance competitions, for example, where the students can still, you know, release some of the energy that they, you know, from being in the classroom, and in addition to interact with one another from a distance without really sharing equipment and such. So we are definitely planning quite a few of those activities. Simon Says, you know, would be another example of that, things where we can still have fun and still, you know, allow the kids to take their breaks, but without sharing equipment or being physically in front of each other.
Thank you for that, Mr. Varro. I also wanted to notate that it'll be fewer kids outside at any given time. And so, you know, the breaks are shorter, but they're more frequent. And then, and also teachers, we've asked them to build in breaks as well, but the kids will be kept, again, in small groups and then separated. So I would imagine like so then pretty much the cohorts would stay in together, which would be very different, unfortunately, for the kids, right? They wouldn't be allowed to just be released and then go play and go find your friend in the other class. Most of the cohorts will stay together, and then we'll look at ways to, as we move forward, how can we still keep them physically distanced, but allow them to interface with some of their friends, right? And so we'll be playing this by ear as we go, but right now we'll be very, very safe and very focused on, again, a mental break, stretching break, still having some fun, but obviously keeping safety first. So thank you for that. The same thing with PE as well. We have like a very robust PE program that's also going to be focused on a lot of those same things. So bringing in the fun, bringing in activities, allowing kids to move their bodies, but then not have that interacting component. One of the things that we didn't mention, but we've mentioned before, is that there'll be no sharing of materials, and that includes any equipment outside. No sharing of materials in the classroom, and so everyone having their own individual items that they work with is super important. So that's another place where some of our funds have had to go, which is to, like, teachers normally would have, like, we have a lot of math manipulatives, and so normally there's enough for a small group. Well, now we need enough for every individual to have their own set of materials that they can manipulate. And so that's where we spend a lot of our time, making sure there's enough for everyone to work individually, still learn, still play, still grow, still interact, but do so in a very safe way. Did that answer your question, Jen?
It really did. There was just one more aspect of that, and it is going to be when they do go to this recess time, they're going to be encouraged to use the restroom. If you have 3 classes out or 4 classrooms out and children running to the restroom, is there a monitoring system? Is there something that's going to happen to where that can actually be monitored as well, so that there's not too many children in the restroom and things along those lines?
Absolutely. So yeah, good question. So then with regards to restrooms, there will be, so we're placing, and Ruben can speak to this too. Ruben, why don't you talk to the physical distancing as it relates to lining up for the restroom and what happens to keep only a few people in the restroom at a time?
Right. So we have the ingress and egress lines are also directed towards the restroom. So students know how to go to the restroom, and then there is a line to show them how to get out of the restroom. And then we also have social distancing stickers that'll show students where to stand. So a lot of thought went into keep the traffic flow of things, and making sure those high traffic areas that there's enough stickers on the ground or markers to prevent students from crowding, closer than 6 feet apart from each other. And then we also have around the hand wash stations, social distancing stickers are also, and marked off a designated area where the teachers can line up and wait socially distanced to be able to wash their hands, use the restroom, and so forth.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and one other thing too is the increased staff too, because it's going to take staff to monitor that are standing outside, monitoring how many kids are inside at one time, because there's only 3 stalls. So there's no more like everybody runs to the restroom, 3 stalls, 3 people at a time, and you don't let the next person in until the other person comes out. So very, very detailed, as Ruben has identified. It's going to take a lot of manpower. But again, we're here for it. It's all good. So good question though. Any other questions? All right, so then you'll go ahead and follow Marilyn's instructions for next steps. We're hoping to get as much parent feedback as we can next week so that we can incorporate it in our feedback. And then we will bring a comprehensive and complete plan to the board at our next board meeting, asking for approval at that time. I have a few slides with regards to the elementary school waiver. A lot of redundancy here because we've already talked about what the plan is. So what I'll do is I'll talk about what the waiver requires and what it is, and get your feedback board as we attempt to move forward. So there is an elementary school waiver. So this is the discussion and feedback for that portion. So we've now ended the public hearing for the learning attendance and continuity plan, and we're now going to discuss the waiver. So as you all are aware, and I've brought this to the board prior to, schools within Riverside County are permitted to apply for an elementary school waiver for in-person instruction. So it looks, this is going to be like the California rollout, right? They'll start with elementary school, see how that goes, then add middle school, see how that goes, and then high school would be the last cohort, so to speak, to be allowed to have in-person instruction. All waivers are granted on a discretionary basis and can be withdrawn at any time. And so, yeah, I understand that they're reviewed by the state superintendent, and so a lot of this is based on, obviously, the safety measures that we've discussed. At this time, only elementary schools are allowed to apply for the waivers, and it only covers transitional kindergarten through 6th grade. So they're the only ones that are allowed to apply. So REACH can apply for a waiver. Some of their requirements include, so we have to consult with all stakeholders. And so this is our conversation with the board today and any parents that are on the call. Schools are required to have a comprehensive school reopening plan. So we've shared that plan throughout the summer with the board. We've shared it with parents. It's been incorporated into our new LCAP that we've shared with you today. And so, and hopefully you've been able to ascertain at least some of the depth in which we've had to go to and through just to be able to identify what it will look like with everyone on campus. And then the school reopening plan must describe in detail our full compliance with any state framework and documentation and guidance. I do want to, as it relates to stakeholder feedback, I want you to know that we did submit a what do you want to say, a survey to all of our staff, and 40% of teachers and staff agree with us moving forward, which means 60% did not, so full disclosure. So 40% say yes, 60% did not. I think that, you know, I think there's just still a lot of apprehension. We haven't gone into as much detail as maybe we have with you all as far as the safety aspect. I think at the time when we submitted this questionnaire to staff, we were actually mentioned opening up by October 15th, which is coming really fast, right? And so we're really not prepared for that. And so that was the initial reaction from the staff. So 40%. So hold that number in your heads. And then the elements in the waiver must include like cleaning and disinfecting. What does that look like? Cohorting, which we've talked to you all about. We said that we would have 100% distance learning. We would have some kids on hybrid, and then we would have our essential learner kiddos that would come. It must include the entrance, the egress, the movement within the school, which we've identified here, the face covering, and then the essential protective gear, the health screenings, identifying and tracing of contacts, physical distancing, testing of students and staff, triggers for switching to distance learning, if that were to occur. So we'd have to identify them and we speak to that as well. And then our communication plan. So if someone gets sick with COVID, what does that communication look like? So I can tell you out of the 10 elements here, we had already identified and had been working on all 9 of the 10 throughout the summer. One of the final aspects that we would have to answer and get finite detail on is how we would test our students and staff. And what that testing would look like. So we had heard from the county that they would be paying for and allowing some kind of a rotation of sorts where our staff could test on a regular basis, like at least on a monthly basis, which we're definitely obviously down for. We looked into paying for testing ourselves to have someone come on site to then test all of our staff. We felt like that would be the most efficient way to get it done, have someone here and just relieve staff once a month to get tested. And so we haven't been able to fully identify what that testing schedule is going to look like. Our school nurse, Miss Amanda, who's an LVN, she's working on her RN to become an RN. So she's been working hard on trying to identify a testing schedule and a plan for us. But obviously, before we would reopen, we would need to be very specific with regards to what that would look like. But everything else we've spoken to, and it's in our school reopening plan in detail, as well as the health screenings, and we've shared that with everyone. So those are some of the elements. And then I have a few more slides, and then we can open it up for questions. So we're here to get board feedback and input. So we're proposing a reopening date of November 1st. So that gives us a month and a half to be prepared. That will allow the sped ed construction to be completed by that time. As most of you know, I know the board is aware, we're installing full buildings and conference room for the sped ed department. Right now, we're using church space just so they have enough space to provide services. And they've been, before COVID, they've all been in one room. They've really been really good sports about making sure there's enough space for all of our instruction. And so once construction's complete there, the timeline looks like will be done by mid-October. Where all of our safety measures we've identified and continue to hone in on, and including the testing for staff. Our biggest concern, obviously, is the health and safety of students that are not in stable homes, and we're worried about the learning loss of those kids. So if you're saying, well, why open up at all? That is, and I've talked to the board president about that, that's our biggest concern, especially as administrators, making sure that all of our kids' needs are met. And making sure that even so those kids are in food insecure homes, homes that are not stable, homes that where the parents cannot provide the supports that they need for while on distance learning, those are the kids that we're worried about. And because we know for a fact we have the numbers, we've already put all of our kids in cohorts, and so we know how many kids would be on campus at any given time. So we're very aware of the amount of kids that would be on campus, what that egress and ingress would look like. And we feel like because we can bring less than half of our kids on campus, we feel like we can reopen in a safe manner. We also feel like, distance learning cannot replace in-person instruction, obviously. And I've already mentioned that less of half of our students are on campus at any given time. But I wanted to note that about 25% of our kids are from families that are essential workers that are saying that they really need their kids to be in school because they have to work. And so, the school opening plan is really with those kids in mind. And so we'd like to open it up for board feedback. I'd like to know what you all think and what your concerns are as it relates to school reopening and us applying for a waiver. What are your thoughts? What's your feedback with regards to that?
I've got 2 points. One, I think the other thing that we have to our advantage is that we're a small school to begin with.
Yeah.
And I think we can monitor things a lot better than probably most because of that. But the other thing is, why not tap into the Riverside County Public Health Department testing? They do mobile testing at the Sears on Arlington and Streeter, the old Sears building. You don't even get out of your car. I've had 2 tests, and I'll get another one next month, and it's free. Rather than bearing that expense. And I know there'd be a little bit of coordinating, but I think they even do them on Saturdays or maybe one of the days where maybe we have a half day schedule would be a good time to set people up and just go over there and get the test and not incur that expense.
How long does that take, Tracy, when you go there?
You drive through. It literally, it depends on when you're there, but I probably 20 minutes.
What about test results?
And I 3 days. Both times I've gotten them back in 3 days.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Jen, because you work for the district, so what's the talk? Well, you might not, I don't know if you're on campus, but have you heard any conversation about testing or mandated testing for staff?
So the plan was to do I think it would take 2 months for the whole staff to get tested. So I think you would do like 1 month, it would be half the staff, and the next month would be the other half. But then I know that the testing was supposed to be every 2 weeks. So I think like maybe 25% one week, 25% the next week. And I think the cycle would take 2 months for the whole campus. And it sounded like they were coming on campus to do it, but I don't know, because the last I heard, like RUSD did not even want to apply for the waiver.
That's interesting because, you know, in my mind, you know, the test is a moment in time. So that they would do it, why not do everybody if they're going to be on campus at the same time? So you know where everybody is in that moment. Because if you take half the people and run them through, you might have people in the other half that haven't been tested yet that may be asymptomatic. That's interesting.
Let me see if I've been bombarded with so much information.
Sure.
I can't keep it all straight. So let me go back. Let me see if I can pull it up and like I don't know if it's like the MOU or something. So let me see if I can find it.
Joanna, are you
doing?
Oh, go on.
Oh no, while you're doing that, Tracy, who did you say was doing the testing?
Riverside County Public Health. Here I can.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just going to say, because I know also I'm in agreement with you, because we also at San Bernardino County, they actually do it as well. So maybe the health department, if you check with the health department, Dr. Rentie, to see if they would come out to do it, or as Tracy has mentioned, maybe even have your instructors go out to the site that they do them at, and they are free. And so you don't have to worry about paying.
Joanna, do you have any updates on the testing at all, or do we just need to keep looking into that? Is Joanna on the call?
It's if you go to get tested at ruhealth.org. And you can register to get it right there, or you can call in, and you can, in some cases, get same-day appointments. I've never had a problem getting an appointment. I call in, I go the next day, and the last time I went on a Tuesday. I had my results by Friday.
Now, Tracy, you have to make an appointment to drive through. You can't just drive. Okay.
Yeah, you have to make an appointment.
Yeah, because they have you all set up. When you get there, they take your ID, they have your kit ready, and they have you already in the system.
Yeah, and Tracy, you're right. The RU Health it's out throughout Riverside County.
Yeah.
I've been tested 3 times myself at different locations. Yeah.
Yep. And it's, you know, it's uncomfortable. It's not all the drama that people made it out to be, but yeah, I'll do another one in October. I'm doing them every other month.
I think I see Joanna.
Yeah.
Do you have any updates regarding the testing, Joanna?
No, we don't have updates.
So we'll keep looking into that too, and then we'll pass that information along to the school nurse and have her work on that, because that is something we would have to obviously work out in order just to submit the plan. We do need a comprehensive plan for a cycle of testing, as Jen said, or yeah. I mean, obviously it would be better not to pay. While I don't know, just the logistics of it. Initially we were told that the county was going to provide testing for the schools, but I haven't heard anything else about that. So I don't think that that's maybe even feasible at this time.
Well, maybe it's something to push if we're applying for the waiver, that whatever they need to figure out, they need to figure out for those that they're granting the waiver for.
Okay, I have a question as well.
Yeah.
So those different factors, if we go back to that last page, I don't know if you can go back.
This one?
Let me see. Hold on, let me just check to see. Testing of students, those must include, the elements must include all of those, right? Testing of students and staff. I'm looking at Riverside County School District's waiver statuses. Maybe you can speak with some of those different schools that have already been approved and see exactly what they did.
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, that's good. Yeah. Okay.
I'll send this to you. I'll just screenshot it and send it to you.
Okay, that's great. Joanna, will you help me work on that starting tomorrow? Because we are going to have to get that piece done.
I'm looking at Harvest Christian School, actually.
You know what? Harvest was actually doing their own testing on their own site, so who knows? But
Who knows? Yeah. I'm going to send this to you, though.
Okay, perfect. What were you
Okay.
going to say, Jen?
No, I've forgotten. I think that I did find out that the district says frequency includes testing all staff over 2 months. 25% of staff are tested every 2 weeks or 50% every month. What to rotate, and like Tracy said, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but now I seem to have lost where I put it. But I have this, I'll try to send it to you. It's a 124 page, well, it's actually on the RUSD website.
Okay.
But I can try to share it with everybody.
But it doesn't really.
It's 2020. Nothing makes sense.
Does it? It doesn't identify like where or how though, right, Jen? How they're testing.
So true.
I'm only on page like 12, so.
Well, they have like a gazillion kids, so they have obviously more. Well, we'll have to look into a system for that. Well, we even looked into paying, which, like you said, I mean, that's not where we want our dollars to go, but like that wasn't even possible. Like we were coming up with nothing. Yeah.
Right. That's why I said just go and talk to. It doesn't make sense to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll start, we'll give that to our school nurse. We'll give her that task to really flesh that out for us this week. That's good. Do you guys have questions, comments, or concerns with regards to the waiver? Is there some pitfalls or something I'm missing? Like what's your chief concern, or what are your thoughts?
One of my concerns, it says for children, for staff and students. What about the children? So are we saying that we have to have the students also be tested?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm leaning towards staff, but I don't know. I guess I'll find out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can find out from them, find out.
And you can shut me down because mostly I'm just curious, but well, and also there were 2 questions in the group chat about, one of them was, you said only 40% of the staff want to come back. What happens to the other 60%? Now, I'm curious also if 40%, did you do the survey with families? Did you get a percentage of families who want to come back and a percentage of families who want to stay virtual?
Yeah, so everybody's already back, so everyone's working.
Okay.
Everybody's back. Teachers are teaching in their classrooms. We're all here. We've been back since August. So we're all back, but what the question was, do you approve of the waiver, like for the kids?
Oh, I see. Okay.
For kids to come back. Yeah. So the staff are back, and I mean, everybody's getting more and more comfortable. Like we really brought them out of their COVID bubble. Like it was very scary at first. And so, and again, I just gave the survey maybe a week or 2 ago. And so I don't know if it would change at all any differently if we had like more of an ongoing conversation about it, but they're all back. I think they're just concerned with kids coming on campus and then bringing the virus, right? I think that's what it is, because we've all been back. Everyone, thank God, has been, health, safety. We're very, our protocols are very strong, and we keep everyone physically distanced. We're all wearing masks. We're getting the health screening every day in the morning. And so we're all back and comfortable there. So now the next layer is kids coming back on the campus. And so, so to answer your question there, so they're already back, but the 40% agreed with the waiver.
Okay.
But then what was the second part you asked me though? Something else I want to. Something else you said I wanted to.
I said so if it's 40% want it and 60% don't, how do the parents feel? Like, do you have a breakdown of who wants to come back and who wants to stay virtual?
So what's great is that, right? So parents have full autonomy there, so they can stay 100% online if they'd like. And so we have a nice contingency. More than half of our parents are keeping their kids home. So we have more than half of our kids are on distance learning 100% of the time. And then we have about a quarter, about 25% that are essential and that need to bring their kids to work every day. Bring to school every day. And then we have that hybrid that had that option that said, we have another, quarter of our kids that have, less than a quarter that have chosen the hybrid option.
So it sounds like a large portion of your staff who is not comfortable with the waiver, they could stay virtual with the virtual kids?
No.
Okay.
It would just be everybody on campus and kids.
Oh, I see. It's like kind of like homeschool, more or less, not necessarily virtual. I see. Okay.
We do have some classes with like 8 kids in it, just by the FYI. And then we have some that have as many as 12, I think 12. But yeah, but for the most part, they're half or less.
Okay. I think you're doing a fabulous job. I mean, I'm blown away. So kudos to you.
Thanks, Jen. But was there another question around that though? What were you thinking?
No, I was just, so there were 2 questions in the chat, but.
Yeah. Do we answer them? I never
Yeah,
looked at them the worst.
I believe you did.
What about you, Robert? What are you thinking?
No, I think it's as long as you can figure out the last part that you talked about, the communication plan. I think it's time. You know, I think this is how that works. If a case, I shouldn't say if, it's probably when, because the way things are going right now, it's going to happen. So we just got to make sure, as long as we're good on how we isolate and we notify the students and the parents, because like I said, my work's been, we haven't stopped. We've been going full bore since day one because we're essential. And fortunately, because we've been following the CDC guidelines, we haven't had a single case that was because of that happened in the office. We have had a few cases that happened because they didn't practice the protocol outside of work. So that's where you're going to have to be careful. As careful as we are, it's going to be somebody at home that just doesn't believe in it or just doesn't wear a mask, and that's how it gets communicated. So that's what we're going to have to deal with. And that, as long as we figure out that communication piece, I think, you know, I'm all for it.
Oh, that's good. Thank you for your feedback. Anybody else? Ashley, you're a parent. What are your thoughts?
I'm looking at number 9 on the elements that we have to have in place for the school waiver. Triggers for switching to distance learning. I'm assuming that means that if the school would have to close again, whatever triggers would influence the school having to close again, that we would be required to identify those. Is that what that's saying?
Absolutely. So in our school reopening plan, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. I didn't revisit it, but absolutely. So what happens is I believe, Ruben might know the numbers. Somebody else on the call might know the numbers, but if you reach, so like for instance, if one kid's identified in a classroom, then the whole class goes home on just like 14-day quarantine, right? If you reach a certain percentage, somebody help me who knows.
I think it's 5%.
If you reach 5% of
3 cohorts.
Thank you. Go ahead, Marcus. Say it. One of you.
I think it's if you have 3 cohorts where someone has been exposed or tested positive, at least 3 or more, the entire school goes home, or equivalent to 5% of students and staff.
So then we would all go home and quarantine for 4. So thanks, guys. I didn't want to say the wrong percentage. Thank you. So then the whole school would then go back on distance, which we've done. So that's the easy part. Now, I wouldn't say easy, but like everybody goes home. We all go on distance learning for 14 days and just self-quarantine and then come back on campus. And so yeah, so we would have to identify those triggers. And we actually have it written down. So it's very detailed in our reopening plan. And so again, I would just bring that piece forward in the element and describe what that looks like. So we hit that 5%. The school nurse is involved. She communicates with the local health authorities, and so that gets them in touch with the individuals that have tested positive, and then they do the tracing, and then we go home and we quarantine. And if we can, right, we would just continue to push out distance learning at that point. 100% distance learning. Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I agree with what Jen said, though. I'm really amazed at all of the steps that have been taken to ensure safety and ensure that learning is still happening. I'm just amazed, and I just can't sing your guys' praises enough. You guys are doing awesome.
Thank you. It's been a lot. I'm proud of the staff. They're amazing, just amazing. Yeah, we've had to work through all the contingencies, and I have to say, like, you know, districts have, number one, the manpower, an entire task force to do the things that we've had to do as one single site. And I'm very proud of what we've been able to create with our limited manpower. But again, we might have a limited manpower, but we do have some really heavy hitters. So it's been great. Who else do I have on the, so Carla, final thoughts on that?
No, I've already said my concerns in regarding to the elements as far as testing and so forth. But I think you guys are doing a great job. Very proud to be on this board. Kudos to your instructors and all the staff. You guys are being proactive, and so that is really good. So kudos to you all.
Thank you. I have to say, so I don't know why I thought Robert was going to be our skeptic on the call today. So I was expecting, I was very pleased to get
I usually am, right?
I know. I was like, oh Lord, I got to hear from Robert and Ashley today.
You do know I gave that before we got here, right?
I got that text, that's right.
So Tracy, final thoughts on what we need to do in order to be ready to apply for a waiver? What are your thoughts on that?
No, I think you've done everything that we can do. I mean, every question I had, you answered. I was more concerned about some of the stuff that the parents raised about, where are we isolating? Do we have an isolation spot? What's the plan? And so, it sounds like we do. Fortunately, we've been at this, I don't know if fortunately is the right word, but we've been at this for several months, and there are things that we do know. And what I think is clear is that, kids at this age, they're probably at a lower risk. They're not immune as some want to say, but they're probably at a lower risk. And I think the way that, we're going about checking people, you said one thing that kind of sent me over. It's like before they get out of the car, we're taking temperature. So I think we have the protocols in place to go. And I think the numbers are low enough that even want to be there, that this would probably work fine.
Fantastic, thank you. Parents, last opportunity for questions.
Dr. Rentie, we do have a few parents that would like to speak.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Denise.
Hi, this is Elaine Zamaripa. I saw a question on the chat, and I'm not sure if it was completely answered, but it said that if 60% of the staff still don't agree with the reopening come November 1st, is the reopening still going to happen if the waiver is approved?
Yes.
Okay.
And
yeah, and are teachers going to be allowed to say, well, they don't want to come back? And is there a plan in place if that happens?
I mean, a teacher can always say they don't want to come back. And so, yeah. Is there a plan in case teachers don't want to come back and teach? There's no plan in place for that. My assumption is that they will come back and they will teach.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is the delay on the school waiver to submit it, is it just because of the staff not approving? I mean, was there a reason why we hadn't applied already?
So we want, let's see. So a couple things. So we just got the feedback. So the waiver, I think we had 2 weeks on the waiver. I could be wrong. Maybe it was 3. We did want to get, we allowed time for staff feedback. We needed to get to this meeting to get board feedback. We hadn't spoken to the board yet. And then we are delaying it a bit for, we're hoping to have those sped ed buildings in place before we reopen. Just to lighten some of our load on campus. We're pretty, that needs to happen as well, to allow us to continue to have the physical distancing in place, if that makes sense. And so that was part of the consideration as well. And then plus we just felt like it's almost October, we may as well go one more month, as opposed to having all the construction take place with kids on campus, which is going to hamper, just paths of travel. And so just because we're so close to completion, it just made sense to wait an extra month. Does that answer your question there?
Yes.
Yeah,
it did. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then it'll allow, and again, more time for us to talk to staff, talk to teachers, make them feel comfortable about, the plan going forward. Go ahead, Elaine.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering. I just have one more question.
Yeah.
if the county goes into the different phase as we're decreasing the numbers significantly lately, and you are allowed to reopen, would you reopen before November 1st if that were a possibility, or no?
For me, the construction's holding it up. So if we get
Okay.
construction done, then we'll go ahead and open up. So if construction's done, say mid-October, and the county opens up, then we'll follow suit for sure. But again, like when I think about the kinder kiddos and like them being able to even concentrate with all the clanging and banging that's going to take place in the first graders on that end, it just makes sense to kind of hold off for a minute.
The other thing to that is I think numbers are going to rise again because of the holiday weekend. And so we're in that, incubation period right now. So I think we'll be through that by the time November 1 rolls around too.
I think too, so yes to that. And I also feel like, a little more time gives a little more insight on how this virus is going to behave in the fall. So all that's insightful as we're still gathering our own data and making decisions. But just good questions too, Elaine. The sooner we open for me, the better. But again, I do have a whole cohort to bring along with me. And so I do like to work on people, and I do like buy-in. And so I am going to try to flip that to 60% before it's over. But it really is the sped ed, that building piece that has me concerned with all the clanging and the construction that's going to happen. So as soon as that's done, if we can open up sooner, we will. But we will be applying for a November 1st, and that'll give our teachers time to get familiar and acclimated with this.
Thank you so much. You answered all my questions.
Okay, good. Anybody else?
Dr. Rentie, there's a question in the chat, and I'm not sure if we answered it. It states, I have a question. Are we able to change our option from 100% distance learning to 100% in-class instruction if the school reopens? I am an essential worker and I may need to go back to work in person.
Wow. Okay. So that is one of the stipulations, that we're not allowing any changes until January. And so we allowed all those changes up until the first day of school. And then once the first day of school started, we're not allowing any changes to in-person instruction. So if someone were in person and they wanted to go to distance learning, that's an easy transition. But in order to come back on campus, you'd have to wait until January. So what'll happen is in December, we'll open it up again to surveys, and then parents at that time can identify if they have changes. And then so the next time you'd be able to get your child back in person would be January. Hopefully that, yeah. So
when we come back from the holiday.
Come back from the holiday. And so we will send out those questionnaires. The teachers will be asking for any changes in December. So all of December will give us an opportunity to then be ready for January, but you'll have an opportunity to do so in December to state your changes at that time. I am very proud of the fact that we can take into consideration our essential workers. And again, those are the people that we are the most concerned with. We're very fortunate to have such a student body that, more than half of the parents can keep their kids home. So that's actually pretty great. And it worked out in all of our favor, I think, in that regard. So any other last questions?
Askins, I have a question. If pending the approval for the November 1st waiver, if we need to at any point pivot back to distance learning, is there a time period that's going to be allotted for that? Will we be a 24-hour, 48-hour? Is there something for teachers to pivot, for parents to prepare? Has that been mentioned?
So you're saying, okay, I'm just so clarifying question. So you're saying if the whole school has to pivot to distance learning?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so if we had 5% of our student body or staff and student body exposed, that would be an immediate, kind of like an immediate reaction that would have to take place right away. where we would be mandated to then go on quarantine, basically, because, you know, basically the whole school's been exposed to COVID. And so there wouldn't be, so it would be like a notice that day that effective tomorrow, school's closed, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And that's if we were to hit that threshold, right? So, I mean, that would be the same, Ms. Askins too?
Yes.
That would be the same, like if your child was in a class that was exposed, that whole class would then have to be quarantined.
Absolutely.
Yes. 14.
I just didn't know if there was, I know in my district, we just have a 24-hour notice. So I'm a teacher also, I teach high school. So we've just been said that if we have to pivot for any reason in either direction, we just have 24 hours to prepare and to, yeah.
So yes, so I guess that's the same.
Dr. Rentie, I would add that, you know, our efficiency in responding to, you know, an exposure on our campus is contingent upon the response from testing, right? So the more efficient testing becomes, the quicker they respond to the, you know, providing the results, the quicker we can respond, you know, in regards to notifying students and staff.
Sure.
So
For sure.
There's a, you know, we're all in the same, you know, like we're depending on one another, right? We can only respond as quickly as we get the information.
Yeah. I guess what mom was asking is like, will they have like a 24-hour notice? And so it wouldn't be much more than that for sure if the exposure happened. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Any other questions? And you know what, actually, thank you for saying that, because I'll probably like indicate that somewhere, like 24-hour notice. Everybody knows they'll have 24 hours to find plan B for their kids. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I'm going once. Anything else in the chat? We're good? Well, I want to thank everyone for your participation and for your feedback. I thank you, board, for your hard time and your dedication to our school. For all of our staff that stayed up late to be on this call, Marilyn and I are still here. So us and the custodians are going to head home. But thank you guys for everything. We'll keep you posted, and then we'll see you guys in 2 weeks for our next board meeting. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Good night.